Geno's going to go for the biggest bucks, and he should.
Oh, yeah. I was reading they could franchise tag him. He end up making like $30 million next year. I mean, that's got to be about what he's made in his NFL career. Like, Good on him.
You know what's funny about Geno? No, I was going to say, I had in my head that he was like the first overall pick way back when, but it was just all hyped. It was like people were saying, oh, he's going to go first. Then he actually dropped to like 39th. I completely forgot.
Yeah. EJ Manuel went ahead of Geno.
Yeah.
What up? Time for some Thursday night football conversation. We're breaking this down for No House Advantage, their Pick'em contest. Your chance to win $10,000. Pete McCarthy, Geoff Ulrich, breaking this one down for you on the Stokastic DFS channel. Appreciate you joining. Give a like, subscribe. You can listen to our shows on our Odds Shopper podcast network as well. A lot of different ways to get involved. Geoff, are we stoked for this game? I mean, this is an interesting one by Thursday night football standards.
Yeah, no, I mean, kind of stoked. I mean, interested to see how this one works out for sure. I mean, you know, I got a little stake in the Seahawks just with his with their the plus 3.5 there. So expecting this to be kind of a close game. I really think the Seahawks probably keep it close. I know that San Francisco is the better team. It's there's no confusion there, but there's a lot of factors that are kind of like against San Francisco here, mostly the quarterback position, which is have we even got the confirmation on Brock Purdy yet? Like, I don't even know.
Well, he's expected to start according to Adam Schefter.
Yeah,
that was as of a couple of hours ago. So I think we're expecting Brock Purdy to be out there.
Yeah. So again, I mean that's kind of what we expected all week. But I mean, again, it's his first start on the road, first career start on the road, first division game. Like, there's a lot of firsts. So it's still an interesting spot, and he had obviously like almost no preparation for this game. So
yeah, not an easy spot to play going to Seattle. Pete Carroll's been very good on these Thursday night games over the course of his career. So as you mentioned, a couple things in favor. Tough divisional game, and 3.5 points. Not going to have any issue with that. Though I did take the 49ers, I think, given about the same. 39 degrees tonight. No issue really with the weather. As you mentioned with the injuries, Brock Purdy questionable, expected to go. No Deebo Samuel. That's a pretty big weapon not to have for San Francisco. Changes a lot of what they do offensively. We know all the different things that he could do. On the Seattle side, Kenneth Walker, the third full practice. He's expected to go tonight at running back for Seattle. I mean, you like Seattle in this game. What is it? Is there a matchup here? Is it the passing game? Is it the defense, just a home field? What has you on Seattle?
So, okay. I mean, there's a couple different things I think to look at here. Like, I think one of them is having Kenneth Walker back. Again, like one of the main problems for Seattle lately, I mean, they just have not been able to run the ball. Offensive line, Walker's kind of been bad, banged up. And some of it's just been game flow induced, right? But, the run game obviously takes a little bit of pressure off their defense. And I think with Walker back, the matchup is horrible, but I do think they'll be able to run the ball just a little bit, just like a little bit. And I think that could really help them. It keeps San Francisco offense off, puts a little bit more pressure on Purdy. So I think the Walker factor is back. I don't know if necessarily I want to get in on Walker and take a contrarian stance of saying, oh, you should go over or whatever, or do this and that. But I just think his presence there will probably help a bit. If he can just rip off one or two big plays, and I'm talking 12, 10 yards, that will really help. So at the same time, I think this is a spot where you probably go over Geno Smith's props. He's been really efficient. He's up there top 5 yards per pass attempt. And I think at some point he'll still be throwing in this game because the 49ers are a really good rush defense. I know we don't really have Smith projected for an over, but that's probably how I'd be leaning in this game.
Yeah, it's pretty wild. The projections are well under. You can see our free projections, stokastic.com. We project him for about 20 yards under the passing yardage line, 61% chance of being under there. We project him just under the passing touchdowns line of 1.5 and slightly over on the interceptions, though a higher chance of him being under than over on that. But if you look at the recent trends on Geno Smith, he's been throwing a ton. And part of it is maybe that Walker was out last week and maybe hit the rookie wall, whatever you want to call it. He hasn't been the same running back the last month or so, at least in terms of his output. But Geno Smith has been over the passing yardage line here, 245.5. in each of his last 5 games. He's thrown at least 2 touchdowns in 7 consecutive games. He's also been over on the interceptions a lot recently, 3 straight games there as well. So you have the projections with the unders, and it's because they're facing the number 1 defense in the NFL by DVOA Football Outsiders. So that's why you're leaning to, or we're seeing some of these unders, but he's been very productive of late, even in a loss last week to Carolina.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a dichotomy, right? I mean, again, I understand why the projections are kind of bearish, but I mean, he completed 80% of his passes against San Francisco in week 2. So it's I think this one is just about game flow. I mean, the worry here is maybe San Francisco comes out slow, and then Geno also just the volume dries up. So again, there's a couple different ways to play this game. I think that if you're going to go under on Geno Smith, taking a contrarian stance and maybe going over on Walker is interesting. Again, we're talking most advantages, the contest. We're talking about, we're not just talking one prop. We're not just talking about Geno Smith's props. That's not all we're talking about. You want to correlate it. So obviously we have Smith projected for that under, but I think that if you're going to do that, you've got to think, what does that mean for other players in this game? Yes. Maybe it means, like I said, Kenneth Walker is just a little bit more effective than people think. And he ends up going over that. I think it's 54.5 yard prop. So there's different ways to play it. And certainly, we've got a couple receivers as well. Lockett and Metcalf, obviously. Mm-hmm. They could also correlate with unders. We do like DK Metcalf's under, I think the most, 58.5 versus his 69.5 per line on No House. So.
Yeah, I think with Geno, he's not the leader. He's not like the first decision that you're going to make in this game. I think he's the follower. Yeah. I think if you're going to take a game where you see Seattle passing the ball successfully, then you go over on Geno. Otherwise, you're going under. As you mentioned, you can mix Kenneth Walker into that. Maybe you're looking at the San Francisco running game. And if you go over on Christian McCaffrey and, the Niners going to have the ball a lot, slows the game down, maybe you take the under on Geno. Looking at the Seattle receivers, Marquise Goodwin, season high 6 targets last week against Carolina. I like him as an over, especially with that reception line. DK Metcalf has been better of late, but kind of had a swoon in the middle of the year there where he wasn't all that productive. And then Tyler Lockett, obviously in the mix as well, 21 targets over the last 2 weeks. What jumps out at you as far as Seattle's passing game with those receivers?
Yeah, I think in a lot of ways, this is kind of a tough game to handicap. Like, we have a couple really easy props that we can probably just, build around, so to speak. You got the McCaffrey rushing yards really low. We have that projected as like one of the strongest plays. The Purdy passing yards line is 145. Yeah. That's really low. He'll probably go over it. I mean, let's just be honest, like 150 yards is like almost the bare minimum for a starting quarterback. So
he should be insulted.
Yeah.
As Mr. Irrelevant.
It's also like it's Seattle. It's not like he's playing the Jets or something here. Like it's a really bad defense. So
I'm used to that being a criticism. I'm used to that being a knock, but it's not now. Yeah.
Hey, yeah. Hold your head up high, Pete. Come on. So, like those two are fine, but like there's really after that, everything is kind of like you can make arguments either way. We just talked about the Geno Smith prop, but for receivers, I mean, I would probably take the stance of I don't think that I have enough guts to like go over on both Metcalf and Lockett. So I think that the contrarian move will be to go under on Lockett and over on Metcalf. I think that, as you mentioned, Metcalf's been playing a little bit better late. He's still got that big, like his receiving yards. I mean, he can blow it out on like 4 catches, right? So you would love that. I mean, there's lots of potential. Like Metcalf is always live to go over his total, even if it's a little bit bloated here, which it is at 69.5. But so I think that's the contrarian move. And I really don't mind that. Like the projections between Lockett and Metcalf aren't very different. They both have that big play potential. And it's probably just going to come down to kind of who gets the big play. So with that in mind, like let's play the odds. Let's play the field. And the field should be heavier over on Lockett and heavier under on Metcalf. So let's do the reverse. That's kind of how I'm approaching this one. I like your Goodwin call, though. Again, he's like Geno Smith is a quarterback who can support 3 decent receivers right now. And I don't think there should be any concern there. We have that over 1.5 receptions, comfortable with that as well. I think that the concern for the receivers comes on the other side with Purdy, right? Like who is he going to support? Yeah. Oh. Yes. But that's how I'm looking at Seattle's side anyways. I think it's completely fine to take an over or two, but I think you need to be aware what the field's doing. And I think it's a good night just to go against the field because I don't think there's much to these props. I think there's so many scenarios where one guy pops off, the other doesn't, that, trying to figure out which one, you're just kind of, you're guessing a little bit, which again, we'll just play the percent, play the field, and take some leverage instead.
Yeah, receiver's so volatile as it is. And then, if you get opposite, that helps out a little bit. And Metcalf, as you mentioned, obviously, has the ability to get well over on this and seems healthy these days, which is a big factor for him. I mean, just real quick, last pass catcher for Seattle, Noah Fant.
Right.
We have him projected as an under. He'd been a big part of the offense until last week. Just 1 target, no catches. His snap count dropped a little bit, maybe not enough to be concerned. What do you make of Noah Fant? Is he one you have a strong take on?
Yeah, I'd probably be okay going under on Fant. I like San Francisco tight ends against San Francisco are just usually death. Like, I mean, it's just they cover very well. They have like going back a few years ago when Salah was the DC as well. Nothing's really changed much in that regard this year. They're just tough on that position. They're good spying the tight end. They just don't allow much over the middle. So that's kind of the way San Francisco is. If you're going to attack them, it's usually on the edge with good receivers, which we do have in this game. And that's kind of what I expect will happen. So I'd actually be okay going under on Fant. I know he's kind of more neutral for us, or just like a very kind of like slight lean under, but I'd probably be okay going under. I'd probably prefer the receptions as to oppose the yards as well. So
going under on the receptions.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't let that one freak play get you. No house advantage. Yeah. If you haven't played before, we got a first match deposit bonus. Use the link below. $50 first match deposit bonus. If you haven't played there before, if you're wondering what the heck we're talking about because you haven't played there before, we're breaking down their pick'em contest where you compete with, tonight if you play in the big contest, $15 entry. You compete with 1,199 other entries to try to win $10,000. It's interesting strategy because you have these props, these over-unders. Some of them seem obvious. You also want to beat 1,199 other people. So there's some game theory to this. Being contrarian, finding some different ways to tweak your lineup just enough to try to find that edge and get to the top and not be tied with 100 other people. If you take a bunch of unders and play for a 10-0 game, you are going to tie with a lot of people. So you have to try to find the way to make yours just a little bit different so you get up there all by yourself. You can also play versus the house. You have a whole other set of props there that you can look at. You hit 5 out of 5. You can mix in NBA props as well. But if you hit 5 out of 5, you get up to 20 times your money. So be sure to check that out. And one of the things I like about No House Advantage playing the pick'em contest is generally a lot of overlay. I think there's been overlay every single primetime game. You can take a look. Let's say you pop in at 8 o'clock Eastern time. Hey, is there overlay? Are we looking at 800 people in this 1,200 entrant contest? And maybe you could throw in some lineups. We make it pretty easy for you. We have free projections for No House Advantage at Stokastic.com, and also free optimal lineups. You can just download the Excel file. You can copy paste some lineups straight into No House Advantage and jump into the contest with some mass entries as well. So another way to get involved. Let's start looking at the San Francisco aspect of things, because this is where it gets interesting, right? Deebo Samuel is out. Brock Purdy, we do believe, is going to start tonight. I mean, a joke of a passing yardage line at 145.5, super easy to go over. Any reason you'd go under? I mean, like if you have 15 lineups, you throw one under just to try to be different, because this one is like super obvious. I don't see how it gets under 146 passing yards.
Yeah, I mean, like, again, just from like a projection standpoint, we have this at like a 83% success rate. So when you're correlating that, you'd say, yeah, I mean, you got like 15, you might do 2. It's all about your risk and what you're comfortable with. But also consider the leverage you're getting. I think that this will be, this will be like almost straight across the board. And the people who don't use it, like, I think it feels like it's either an over or like leave it out. Like there might be some lineups that people make without it, but how many people are actually going to go under it? I don't know. Again, it's your risk tolerance. I think this is an interesting spot, because the one thing about Purdy, it's not necessarily that I don't think he can get there if he plays the whole game, but he is injured, right? I mean, we're talking like one hit. Josh Johnson like comes in. I mean, and then it's over. So I think that there's again, 10 lineups. Do you need to burn 2? No, probably not. 15, I might get up there. So I guess that's kind of where I'm looking at it. Like 15 is where I try to think about doubling up, but 10, you're probably right. You burn one lineup with Purdy as an under, and then you did make one lineup without him in it as well, or something like that, right? But where you can still hit the 10 of 10, even if he hits, but at least you have lower on props. So there's an advantage to that too. But I don't think you need to burn too many unders here. It's really low. We're not even at like the 165 mark here, where, realistically, like McCaffrey could just run and he goes under. But we have this projected. We haven't projected for almost 200 yards, so it's not like our projection is super low either.
83% chance of being over. I mean, there's just not a whole lot.
I really think you're playing to an injury here. I mean, that's pretty much what we're talking about.
Yeah, he's got the bad oblique. I mean, I've covered a lot of baseball over the years. It's a terrible injury for a baseball player because you're always twisting when you're hitting and stuff. But as a quarterback, I wouldn't be worried about a hit necessarily. It's more, I guess, if he can turn and make a throw quickly, I think he'll be okay.
Probably. Look, let's be honest. They'll probably jack him up with some good medicine before.
No doubt. Yeah, I mean, he won't be feeling a thing. So yes, Brock Purdy, you can pretty comfortably go over on the receiving yardage. Where I think you can get different with Brock Purdy is that the passing yardage is so low that you don't necessarily have to be correlating it with his receivers. And we really don't know who the bell cow is going to be catching balls for San Francisco right now. You got Juwan Jennings over under 24.5 receiving yards. Brandon Ayuk, who is Jimmy Garoppolo's favorite, but was only targeted 3 times last week against Tampa Bay. And remember, Trey Lance wasn't throwing to Ayuk a whole lot either. He's all the way up at 53.5 receiving yards. And then George Kittle being the other one, really high total here, 48.5. You're looking in the mid 30s if you see the sports books.
Yeah, I mean, this is the cool thing about Purdy. Like, you can go over and still get crazy with his other props here. Like, you could go over passing touchdowns. You could take over passing touchdowns and over interceptions. I don't think many people are going to do that. So again, it kind of speaks to the point, and you can differentiate easy by going over on Brock Purdy, because you could mix in like a Brandon Ayuk under and with the over on his passing yardage. You can mix in a Kittle over, which I don't think is going to be popular tonight because his prop is like 10 yards bigger than it is on other sports books. So again, it's kind of interesting. You can do a lot of things with San Francisco offense. Whether, again, speaking to the McCaffrey prop, I mean, it's a bigger prop, and it's not as much of a lock as Purdy is. Nothing's a lock, obviously, but it does feel like it's at least a little bit, more viable as an underplay. They do still mix in, like they mixed in Mason last week. It's potential McCaffrey, get stuffed a couple times. Mason comes in, takes more early down work, and then McCaffrey just works as a receiver. So
let me ask you this.
Yeah,
because I was surprised. How many times do you think Christian McCaffrey has run for 72 yards? That's where he has to get to tonight for the over. How many times do you think he's done that with San Francisco?
I think he's only done it once, right?
Twice.
Okay.
Out of 7 games. And look, Deebo Samuel's not going to be taking those 3 to 4 carries per game that he usually does, but San Francisco's always rotating running backs, and McCaffrey's such a key part in the passing game, and maybe that becomes more so with Deebo out. I mean, I don't think it's crazy at all to get under on McCaffrey tonight, even if it seems like a low number.
Yeah. And again, it mixes perfectly with your Purdy over, because sure, the whole field's going to be on Purdy over, but guess what? The whole field's going to be on the McCaffrey over as well. So you instantly, you're just creating like a more unique build to start off by doing that. So like I said, everything kind of flows with this Brock Purdy over. I mean, you can just get different in so many different ways after that. So I think that, again, if I'm looking at these receivers, it's kind of like similar to Seattle in a way. Like if I'm going to take the Kittle over, I don't know if I necessarily want to pair him with an Ayuk over as well. You could get really bullish here and go like Kittle, Ayuk over, McCaffrey under rushing, and just play for like a Brock Purdy, like 250-yard game. I mean, it could happen again.
Play like the first half against Tampa, right? I mean, he didn't get to complete the big numbers. They're up so big. He came out, but he was on the way.
I mean, I know Seattle's a bad rush defense, but like they're up for this game. This is it for them. This is like their season.
Yeah.
They know they have to stiffen up here. So it could happen. Certainly in the realm of possibilities here. But I kind of like Kittle in this game. He's beaten up Seahawks in the past, not good at covering the tight ends. So that's kind of the player I'm keying in on to be a little bit different with the receiving yardage. Ayuk, I just don't know. Like you still got Juwan Jennings mixed in. And McCaffrey, obviously, I think will take a load in that department as well. So Ayuk could probably be the player I'm looking to fade, which is kind of in line with our projections. Jennings, we do have projected as like a slight over. And Jennings is a really interesting player. I mean, he's a big target out there. He earns himself targets in this offense, which is impressive in itself. It's like not a high volume offense from a passing perspective. It's got a lot of athletes, and Jennings still just seems to earn targets every week. So again, not really a player I'm necessarily scared of targeting for an over either, or throwing it in as like a low point play. I think that with Deebo out, he'll probably be a factor again, just be on the field a little bit more.
Yeah. And he had 6 targets. Excuse me. No. I got the wrong guy. Juwan Jennings, 2 targets last week against Tampa Bay, but now they would be able to game plan theoretically a little bit more for it. One of the things I look at, you talk about Kittle, and I know, all of our projections have the under. You're talking about you're bullish on him with the matchup against Seattle. The other thing that I look at is, young quarterbacks tend to fall in love with the tight end. And Brock Purdy's a rookie quarterback trying to figure it out. They tend to want to throw over the middle. And you see this throughout the league. You've seen it over the years. For instance, last week, George Kittle, 5 targets. He only turned it into 28 yards. I guess that's my concern with Kittle is he just washed. But I think with a young quarterback, he'll have opportunity. If I'm guessing, I would think Kittle and McCaffrey have the highest target total for San Francisco tonight.
Yeah, and I think some of that the Kittle yardage is, I mean, you could be right. I mean, we could be seeing a player in his decline, but I think some of it's probably just the matchup as well. Against Tampa Bay, pretty good coverage team. He's had some explosive games. Arizona, he burned up another weak pass catching team, had almost 100 yards against KC. So I think Kittle still got it in the spot to go over again. Not a player I'd want to target too much in the over department, but we're talking one game. We're talking strategy for a big contest, and that'll be a lone prop across the board. Not something you have to worry about. So this is the more we break it down, I think you start to realize it's a really interesting, probably one of the most interesting slates we've had. I think this game could kind of break out just from a stat perspective in a lot of different ways. I'm not expecting like a high scoring game, but some of these props are so low that, again, like the score is not necessarily going to matter to that. I mean, a lot of different ways to build, and we just have 2 props there with Purdy and McCaffrey that are just going to be, very central, very high owned, and everything will just flow from that.
And that's part of it. And then the other thing I think makes it unique is that Purdy's passing yardage is so low that he doesn't have to throw for 300 yards to be over. He could throw for 155 yards. He's over. And then the receivers aren't necessarily getting there. So I think that makes it a little unique as compared to, Geno Smith's, let's say. If you're taking Geno Smith over on the passing yardage, you better take some receivers to go along with him. I don't think you have to do that with Purdy, especially if, Christian McCaffrey ends up with 65 with 150 passing yards for San Francisco, which no one would be surprised by.
Yeah. I mean, again, I think these props too, I think that whichever way you go on McCaffrey and Purdy, you should put them high up. If you go over Purdy and under McCaffrey, put them in your two top spots. Put Purdy first and then put the McCaffrey under after, because they're going to be the highest use. So you want to get the most benefit out of it, right? Don't put Purdy in the fifth, just put it up. I mean, live and die with it. The whole field will be there. And you know what? That's the other way you can gain leverage on this field. There will be people who play Purdy and don't put him in the highest spot. So I think everything kind of just flows from these two props. It's really, it's interesting. I mean, and to some extent you can make an argument the Kittle under is strong too, but I think that one's just got way more variability with it. So yeah, really interesting. Make sure you're allocating those props efficiently, because that's the other way you can gain over other lineups, man, by just having that Purdy in the highest prop in the highest spot. And again, if you're going to be contrarian with another play like a Kittle or McCaffrey, do it high up, because if you hit, that's, obviously you're going to be in line with the Purdy over, but you're going to just smash the rest of the field if you hit in that other high end spot. So
now there's a big advantage to being unique. And this is a game where I think you can find a way to be unique. Another way to be unique, if you're playing DFS contests, something to check out over at Stokastic.com is our lineup generator. It's really going to allow you to, be contrarian in those big NFL contests that we see, the showdowns on Thursday night. But it's also going to allow you not to be stupid, because it's going to kind of tell you, hey, how contrarian are you being now? How much value do you have in your lineup? We have a new player swap tool that allows you to sort by ownership, by projection, so you can make good decisions. You can do it quickly. You don't spend hours and hours hand building lineups. The lineup generator is included when you sign up for DFS packages at Stokastic, so be sure to check that out. Just gonna dabble real fast. If you want to play versus the house at no house advantage, and I'll spit out some things that are interesting. How about this? I mean, we talked about Christian McCaffrey in the passing game. That is not part of the pick'em contest, but if you want to play McCaffrey in the passing game, 39.5 receiving yards is what you're looking at if you play versus the house. I would think McCaffrey has some opportunity tonight to get there.
I mean, his total yardage, is there a total yardage prop up on the versus the house, or?
No, 79.5 rushing yards is a separate one. They have both rushing and receiving, but not total.
I would definitely, I would probably prefer the receiving yardage in that scenario as well. We kind of talked about reasons why already. But the 49ers always have someone on their roster to mix in on the early downs, just the way Shanahan rolls. Always got someone prepped back there. And I think McCaffrey with that rookie, I think he's going to be vital for him tonight.
And how about this? Brock Purdy, I think it was 146.5 passing yards in the pickup contest, 216.5 passing yards if you're playing versus the house. So yeah, it's quite the difference there. You can get it right in the middle, probably 60% of the time. But for Brock Purdy, I mean, that's a huge difference between those two. And it goes to show just, you really are being contrarian if you're going under on him. It's kind of I don't want to call it a free square, because whenever I say that, it doesn't come in. But it looks like, pretty easy one to hit.
It's a solid under for us. Yeah. I mean, again, we haven't projected for a little bit more than probably you think, but it's under 200. So it's a solid under there.
Then if you play versus the house, you can put together a contest entry with 5 different props. You can check out our NBA projections for no house advantage. Those are free as well. Try to give yourself a nice edge. You get 5 out of 5. It's 20 times your money. So another way to get involved there. And again, if you're new to no house advantage, sign up and use the first match deposit bonus up to $50 as far as that goes. So Kenneth Walker, I guess we didn't really dive into him. He's coming off an injury, hadn't been very effective in recent weeks. up against a really good defense. If you're going to take the over, you really need Seattle to be grinding out, playing from ahead. You like Seattle in this game, at least getting 3.5 points. Do you like Kenneth Walker to get to 55 rushing yards tonight?
Yeah, I mean, I think the more we talk about this game, like, I mean, Walker is definitely another way you can get unique, but there's a lot of different ways you can do it. Like, Walker, to me, if I was going to use him as a contrarian play, it would be as a low point play, be someone I'd mix in. But I think the one thing that if you're going to go over on the Walker, you really need to play for like you should be hammering unders on the passing game for Seattle. You should probably be looking to take like a Kittle over, because if Walker does have a good game, like you've got to figure Geno Smith's pass attempts really go down here over the last few weeks, and he probably just doesn't throw that much. And then you've got to feel there's just a few more targets out there for like Kittle and guys like that. So I think Walker is like, I mean, like I said, it's an outcome that could happen, but it's not necessarily my favorite way to like make a contrarian lineup. Again, if you're making 15, sure, I'd probably throw one lineup in like that, but I wouldn't. It's just a really tough matchup. And this prop isn't exactly what we'd call like super generous. I mean, I think he had like 49.5, and he really didn't look that good before he went out with an injury anyways. Nope. So tough spot for him, but very explosive player. Again, I really feel like Seattle's going to come out. This is kind of their Super Bowl in a lot of ways. And you could just see him just grab some chunks off the bat, get there with the attempts, get 15 to 17. And all of a sudden, he ends with like 60, 65. So.
Yeah, so look at that as far as Walker goes with the running game. We would project a little more than 60 yards rushing tonight, but you need the right kind of game to get him there. I think is what we're looking at and what we have seen from Seattle over the last few weeks, especially when they've been struggling a bit here. All right, we got more No House Advantage content coming up. I was talking about, hey, if you want to play versus the house, you can mix together NBA, NFL. Terry Gundacker are going to have some good NBA props for you to look at as far as that goes. Help you out with the pickup contest as well, which ballooned last night, $10,000 first place prize in the NBA contest on No House Advantage for the first time. That was cool to see. And then we'll get back to NFL content showdown live before lock coming up at 7:15 Eastern. Geoff, pleasure, my man.
Yeah, have a good week, or have a good Thursday, guys. We'll see you tomorrow with Aton.